All right, welcome to Crafting with Ginny at 3:30 on Tuesdays from the Rotary Children's Library. This week we are focusing on Halloween crafts like we were last week, and today we are going to be making a Frankenstein out of a bottle, a water bottle. So your materials that you're going to need, and I suggest that you can use newspaper, but I always use a tin, sort of a tin plate or a tin pan to put mine in, because I find that easier and then it doesn't stick to the newspaper. This keeps everything contained too. You're going to also need a water bottle. So if it has a label on it, make sure you take the label off and there's no glue on it. And you want it to be dry inside, so make sure that it's dry before you use it. You're going to need 2 lids from bottles. And you'll want to have a paint tray along with a couple of, I use these sponge paint brushes, but you can use a regular paintbrush. I just find them easier. And of course, you're going to need some black acrylic paint. That's what I'm using. And I've got some dark green. You can choose whatever color you want to have your Frankenstein look, but I just found black and the dark green go well. If you want to use some tacky glue, you can use that. If not, you can use a glue gun. So there's a glue gun that I'm going to use for the sake of it'll go faster. And I've got some Google eyes, because you're going to need a couple Google eyes. You're going to need a pair of scissors, and you might want a hole punch. That's up to you. I find that works really well. Plus a black Sharpie pen or marker. All right, now you can print off these instructions on our website. So if you just print that off, then you're able to follow along, or you can do the craft after. All right, and I've got a blow dryer here today too, because I want to dry the paint pretty fast, so that's the reason I've got that. So I'm just going to put this down a bit here. I'll bring it a little closer, but I'm just going to put the screen down so you can see what I'm doing. So the first thing you're going to want to do is in your tray, well, actually on your bottle, you're going to want to take your caps, and before you even do that, first make a line about 3 inches, because this is going to end up being the top of your Frankenstein, as you can see. So you'll want to be down about 3 inches all the way around. So I measured and I just put a dotted line around there, because that's where you're going to be cutting. Now, the other thing you're going to want to do is on either side where your caps are going to go, just trace around your caps with your felt marker as well, so that that's on there ahead of time before you paint. So now the next thing you're going to want to do is just flatten your bottle a little bit so it's easier to cut. And you're going to cut on that dotted line. As you can see, what was our bottom is now going to be our top. That will be the hair of Frankenstein. So we won't need this other part of our bottle. We might use that for a different craft one day. So the next thing you're going to want to do, and I'm going to do it really fairly quickly, is you're going to want to paint. Actually, no, before you paint, take your hole punch if you have one, or make a hole just in the center of where you drew in those circles for the caps on either side. And that's just so you can get started with your scissors, because you want to cut that out as well. So I'm just going to cut my thing here a little bit. Now I'm going to cut around, and you don't want to make the circles any bigger than the caps, because then your caps won't fit in nicely. So just follow those circles that you drew and cut around before you do your painting. Now it's always nice to have a clear bottle. If you have a colored bottle, that's okay. Like say you had a colored pop bottle, but the clear bottle would be nice. And if it's smooth, that's even better. So once I've cut that out, I'm going to just measure with my cap and see that that's going to fit nicely in there. So now I'm going to cut out the other side where I did my little hole punch in there. That's to help me so I can get started with the cutting. That's why I suggested that you make a hole in there. And don't worry if some of the black felt marker is still showing a little bit on there. Just try to cut around the circle. Be sure not to cut right to the very bottom, because you definitely need to have that bottom there. Okay, so I'm going to measure this side as well with the cap, just to make sure that it will fit in there okay. All right, so that side looks good. This side is good. So now we can get started with the painting. So what I would suggest is paint on the inside first. So I'm going to put some paint in my tray here. I'm going to put some dark green. Because if you paint on the inside, you don't necessarily then have to put 2 coats on the outside. And if it's easier for you to see and know where you're going, you see on your bottle, you have kind of a line there where it's all rough here, but I have kind of a smooth line there. That's as far as I'm going to go with my green paint. So I'm going to paint on the inside first, all the way around, so it's on there nice and thick. Now you may not have to paint inside with the black. That's totally up to you, because the black goes on pretty good. Just put a bit of paint on the inside. And if you don't want to paint on the inside, that's okay too. You can actually just paint on the outside, but you may have to put 2 coats of paint. So now also paint on the outside. And I'm going to paint fairly quickly, like I said, up to that line. You can see where that line is. Just all the way around. And don't worry if you go over that line a little bit, because you have your black paint that's going to go on the top. And you can make, that's the hairline, so you can make his hair look like it's kind of jagged if you want. So you want to have at least 1 coat, and if it's not looking like it's dark enough, put 2 coats of paint on there. And that was why I suggested that you paint on the inside. I'm just going to let someone else in here. And re-invite them in. All right, so far we've got this painted. So far we've got this painted here in our dark green. And I can see, even with my scissors, I can see there's one edge on the bottom there that I didn't quite cut evenly. So I'm going to just trim that a little bit. Now it's handy to have some wet paper or wipes. So you want to have some wipes handy just for your hands, because they're going to get some paint on them. So I've got it painted all around there. So now I'm going to paint the black. So now I'm going to take some black paint with a different brush. And I'm going to paint the hair of Frankenstein. So now I'm going to put this down so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm painting, now I'm going to paint the hair of Frankenstein. And don't worry, you have to hang on to that wet paint. I should have started probably at the top, but that's okay. I have paper here to wipe my hands on. So I'm going to put that around. And just paint that. Remember, that's his hairline, so you can make it as jagged as you want. Just get it all painted, and you'll know if there's no paint on some of the bottle, because it'll be kind of shiny. So you want to make sure that you get it all painted, because that's his hair, top of his head. So there, I've got mine painted. So now I'm just going to wipe my hands, and I'm going to let that dry. While that's drying, I am going to paint my bottle caps, and I want them to be black, because you want your bottle caps to look black like that. So they need a chance to dry as well. So I'm going to just wipe my hands a little more here, and then I'm going to paint my bottle caps black. So I have 2 bottle caps. So I'm going to paint them black. And they don't have to be painted on the inside necessarily, just on the outside. So there's one. I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to paint another one. And I put a fair bit of paint. It doesn't have to be globs and globs of paint, but I put a fair bit of paint so that it covers all. Mine are an orange cap, so I want that orange to be covered. I want it to be all black. There. Now I'm going to just check mine and see that I've got paint everywhere. And I can touch up anything that doesn't have paint on it that I want it to have paint on. And I see that I have a spot here where it's not quite black. And like I said, you'll be able to tell. So now I'm going to move my paint out of the way, and I'm going to just dry it because I have a blow dryer. So I'm going to use my blow dryer to dry it, because that makes it go a little faster. So dry your Frankenstein. I'm just drying this. And when he's all dry, you have to make sure he's all dry. When he's all dry, then you're going to glue on his Google eyes. And you will stick the caps in to those spaces, those cutout circles that we had. And like I said, don't worry, when you're using acrylic paint, it washes really well. So it will come off of your hands quite nicely. So dry it everywhere. If you paint it inside of your bottle like I did, you might want to dry it inside too. Now I'm kind of racing to dry it, but I just wanted to show you. If there's spots that need some touching up like I see on the top here, then fix those. And once you have that, then you're going to take your caps and you're going to put them in those holes. Okay. Now you're going to take your bottle caps and you're just going to fit them in. Fit them into those holes. And don't worry if you get a bit of orange. As you're fitting it in, it kind of scrapes the paint off a bit. Just dab it up. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is you want to glue on your Google eyes. So I'm going to wash my hands and then I'll glue on my Google eyes. Okay, so now I'm going to glue on my Google eyes. So I'm going to take my Google eyes and I'm going to put some big, nice big ones, like large Google eyes on. And I have a hot glue gun, so I am going to use my hot glue gun to put them on. You can use tacky glue if you want. So now you're going to want to glue your eyes on. I dropped one. So make sure your Frankenstein is completely dry. Mine's a little wet, but I wanted to show you this. So now you're going to glue those on, and now you're going to draw on a mouth with your felt pen. So there you drew on your mouth, and that is your finished Frankenstein. So I hope you enjoyed this craft, and I hope you had as much fun and as much mess as I had. It was easy enough to do. It's a recyclable craft, and join me again tomorrow, because tomorrow I have musical theater at 10:30, and then in the afternoon we are doing paper magic. So we are going to be making something fun for Halloween again. All right, thank you for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.